Welcome to Poor Millionaires. Ladislas Maurice, otherwise known as the Wandering Investor, is an expert in international property investing, residency and citizenship. In this episode, we'll ask whether poor millionaires need a plan B, what that entails, and how you can go about implementing one. Poor Millionaires is a show for people with investable wealth of $1 to $20 million. We strive to educate, connect, and inspire, to give you the tools you need to thrive and secure lasting prosperity for yourself and for your family. PoorMillionaires.com. Invest with ambition. This podcast is for educational purposes only. The information does not constitute financial advice or recommendation and should not be considered as such. Value investments and any income derived from them can fall as well as rise, and you may not get back the original amount you invested. Ladislas Maurice, the Wandering Investor. Welcome to the show.
How you doing, James?
Good. How are you doing?
All right.
So Ladislas and I met in the mysterious island of Sark in the Channel Islands. And I'd recommend everyone to go and take a look at the recent YouTube video that he posted on his YouTube channel. It showcases Sark absolutely brilliantly. And it's worth a look because it all ties into the stuff that we're going to talk about today as well. So Ladislas is an expert in international property investment, second passports, and creating a plan B. We'll talk about all those things very shortly. But to begin with, Ladislas, can you just give us a bit of information on your background and explain to us how you ended up doing such a weird and wonderful job?
Sure. So, bachelor's of business administration in Canada. Then I went to grad school for business and law school in Australia at the University of Sydney. I started my corporate career at Nestle at their headquarters in Switzerland, and then they expatriated me to Africa for 7 years. So effectively, I spent most of my 20s in Africa. My last role there was being on the executive board of Nestle in Ghana, in charge of the dairy business for a few West African countries, namely Ghana, Ivory Coast, Sierra Leone, and Liberia. And at the age of 30, I just decided I wanted to do something else. Try some other region, try some other company. My plan initially was to move to Dubai, but before doing that, I wanted to go on a nice vacation. And my parents were retiring at the same time, so we decided to go on a road trip together from Oman to Paris by car.
Wow.
So we took the car from Oman to the UAE, put it on the ferry, landed in Iran, drove all across Iran, went into Armenia, Georgia, crossed all of Turkey, down to Greece, up to Ukraine, and then Paris. And it was the first time that I had two things going on at the same time. Money, right? Because when you're young, you don't have money. I had money, I had savings. And two, time. I had money and time at the same time. And energy, right? Because I was young. I still am young. So as we were traveling around, I'd go into these cities and go look at real estate agencies, go do some viewings, speak to lawyers, meet expats, meet local business people, etc. We're really slow traveling, and then I started doing some real estate deals, and I kept pushing back the time that I'd look for a job in Dubai. And now it's been almost a decade. I have not been looking for a job in Dubai, and I do this full time. So I manage my money full time. After a year or two, people started asking me, Ladislas, like, you're traveling in all these like random countries, but you don't seem to have a job. Like, what do you do? So I started blogging about it, just writing. And then people started contacting me, asking me questions. After a while, I started charging for the calls. And then I went into YouTube, etc., different social media, and now it's all business. So we essentially help people internationalize and diversify, which means international investments, second residencies, second passports.
So I'm wondering what it was like, sort of having your formative years, so to speak, in a place like Africa, which is pretty much Wild West, isn't it? I mean, did that kind of instill a bit of a kind of like risk-taking sort of attitude in you, do you think, at a young age?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, South Africa in many ways is a developed market, especially when it comes to retail. So I'd say that experience was a bit different. But going into Ghana, Ivory Coast, Liberia, all of that, that was really like literally the Wild West, like the Wild West Africa. Um, Wild in the sense that it's data poor, right? So in our developed markets, we're used to having a lot of data, too much data to work with. In West Africa, when you do business on the ground, you deal with a lot of ambiguity and a data poor environment. So
Mm.
you just have to make business decisions based on a lot of gut feel, a lot of trying to read the market without actually having data to back up your decision making. So you make a lot of decisions, and then you have to admit quickly, okay, this isn't working, this is working, this is not working, and just like you have to be very quick, very very quick in making decisions and in retracting initiatives as well.
I guess in property, is it a good thing to make quick decisions? Maybe kind of taking your time and sort of slowing things down a little bit for property is a better approach.
It depends. You know, some of the best deals I've made, I made the decision in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Um, Look, sure, you know, more research is always better. But sometimes you can over research something and then reach analysis paralysis
Mm.
or have the thing gone, right?
So,
In markets that are dynamics, if you think too much, the deal just goes. So yes and no.
so what does your sort of day-to-day life look like then as the wandering investor? Because, I mean, outside of my boss Sven Lorentz, I think you're probably one of the best traveled people that I've met. Is the life of the wandering investor as glamorous as it appears on the outside?
Oh, it's not glamorous. It's absolutely not glamorous. I mean, there is no day to day. It's just generalized chaos. Yeah, it just involves a lot of traveling and
Yeah.
flying and meeting people and just and I travel. Sven is lucky because he travels in like kind of nicer countries, right? Where things kind of work. Um, he goes to the US and he goes to London and Germany and a lot of places like that, though he does venture to Ukraine and other emerging markets. I venture into places where things don't work. So
I'm not sure a lot of people these days would say that things work in the UK, but
that's true.
we'll park
That's
that
true.
one for now. Um,
That's true.
so,
So essentially,
um,
I'll put it this way: I do not have a Calendly, and clients are often, "Oh, can you
yeah,
send me your Calendly?" It's like, no, I can't send you my Calendly. I can just tell you in the next 5 days. That's like when I'll be available approximately. Like, I mean, I'm sure Sven doesn't have a Calendly either.
but I guess you never get bored, right? It's varied work.
Bored? No.
Yeah, yeah. So why should poor millionaires be kind of thinking about a plan B? And also to kick off, can we kind of just like dissect what this means? Because there are a lot of terms flying around, like second passports and citizenships, residency, all that kind of stuff. And just in layman's terms, what do all these things mean, and what constitutes a plan B?
Cool. So a residency is the right to live somewhere. So it's a permit that you get, typically a card or a stamp on your passport that says that you are allowed to live in said jurisdiction full time. That's the a residency. Then there's tax residency. It is the jurisdiction that considers you to be their tax resident and that will tax you on all your local income and potentially on worldwide income as well. Being a resident does not necessarily mean being a tax resident. You can be a resident of a country without being a tax resident of a country. You can also be, it's a lot less rare, a tax resident of a country without being a resident of a country. That's usually when people end up in trouble.
Yeah.
Um, the third is just a citizenship. A citizenship is you have another passport. Dual citizenship, you can have multiple passports. It's a passport. Essentially, that's what it comes down to. Now, why should poor millionaires consider second residencies or second passports? I'd say because poor millionaires are the number one victims of government oppression. If you're really well off, really rich, you can structure your way around things a lot easier. There's a ton of options. If you're poor, well, actually, you're in the West, you're actually well off because you're a net recipient of welfare and of taxes. So actually stay where you are. If you're poor, stay in the West. Um, you're good there. Like, don't go to Africa. If you're a poor millionaire, definition being, what's your definition of poor millionaire, James?
So it's anyone with investable wealth between $1 and $20 million is how we define it.
Exactly. Look,
Yeah.
this is where governments are trying to get taxes. This is where they're trying to squeeze you.
Yeah.
You are the number one target to squeeze because the guys that are worth 50, 100 million, 1 billion, they're buddies with the government officials. They have the lobbyists. They have all of that. They have the expensive restructuring teams. They have complex businesses they can restructure many different ways. When you're worth 5 million, that's what, like a few properties, a brokerage account, a little bit of gold, maybe one or two private investments. You're just waiting to be victimized by your government. You can't structure your way out of it. You can, but it's expensive. It won't be worth it. You're stuck. So these are the people actually that I mostly talk to that realize that, hey, they're not getting anything. They're just paying for everyone else, and absolutely no one is saying thank you. So in a world where, especially in the West and in Western European countries and in North America as well to some degree, where the fiscal situation just keeps getting worse, combined with a social situation that keeps getting worse, everything points towards squeezing the rich ever more, but not the ones with lobbyists because they manage to just get away with it. So the writing's on the wall. You're getting squeezed and you're going to get squeezed more. So you can stay there either out of patriotism. Sure, that's fine. I respect that. Out of complacency, which is what most people will do. They'll just stay there and get victimized, and their money will wither away, and they won't really have that much to hand over to their children, and that's fine. Or out of just general laziness. Or three, just fear. A lot of people are just scared of making the move, of leaving, of actually admitting to themselves that if they leave, they can just end up paying 0 or close to 0% in taxes in a completely legal way. And the same applies to, so that's more of a residency play, of a tax residency play, knowing that you just moving somewhere, becoming a tax resident, not being a tax resident of a high tax Western country anymore. Then there's just the general aspect of also having a plan B. Some people are not that worried about the tax aspect. They're fine. They're like, look, I like my life. It's fine. I'm paying taxes, whatever. Fine. But they're worried about what could become. They're worried about social tension. They're worried about geopolitical tensions. And they just want to know that if they wanted to leave, they can, and they already have like a home somewhere else that just accepts them immediately. And by a home, I don't mean just like a holiday home in Spain, for which they don't have a visa to stay more than 3 months, every 6 months, but an actual place where they get residency, they can bank, they can live, they can do business. Their family can move, their children can go to school, etc.
So what would a plan B look like then? Presumably you'd need a home, you'd need the passport, you'd need some form of bank account.
Yeah, generally speaking, the most thorough plan B you can get is a second citizenship.
Right.
Because that is just a complete right to live and do business elsewhere and do banking and all of that. It's also superior in a world where there's a lot of geopolitical tension. So we have like a fair amount of Ukrainian clients. They were lucky enough to be out of Ukraine when the war started, males. But now that the war is ongoing, they can't renew their passports anymore because the government says, sure, if you want to renew your passport, you have to come back to Ukraine. They come back, they get drafted. So they're in a situation where if their passport expires, they become an illegal alien wherever they are. If they lose their passport, they become an illegal alien wherever they are. If they run out of pages for stamps, they become an illegal alien wherever they are. So people like that are are buying essentially second passports so that they can continue traveling. So
Yeah.
that's a bit of an extreme scenario,
Yeah.
but a scenario for which people are increasingly planning. A lot of people are of the opinion that there's going to be, conflict at some point in the next 10, 20 years in Western countries. I mean, in Europe, let's face it, we have a history of conflict. That's what Europeans do. We
Yeah.
like to make war, right? Um, Maybe we like to think that we've matured out of this, but when I look around, I don't quite think we have. So it's not completely unreasonable to think that it could happen again. So a lot of people are buying passports for this reason, so that if conflict were to start, they don't have to, they're not stuck with just one passport.
Mm.
So that's the best plan B is another citizenship, and you can buy these citizenships entirely remotely, etc. We help with that.
Yeah.
Um, then the second strongest is having a residency permit elsewhere, preferably permanent, but temporary is fine as well. Essentially, a lot of countries you can make a bank deposit, or you can buy real estate, and the country will grant you a residency permit. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to live there. Some of them you don't have to spend any time on the ground. Just maybe go back once every 2 years to keep it active. That's it for 24 hours, or just to renew your ID, your local ID, and that's it. And then when you have residency somewhere, you link to real estate. You've got a house, got a residency permit, you have a utility bill, you can get a driver's license, you can get a local bank account. You get this for your whole family, and if things start to feel not so good from a tax point of view, or from a social point of view, or from a geopolitical point of view, just off you go on the first flight. You're there, you're good.
So, but what sort of net worth does this kind of thing become feasible then? And also, kind of, as you move up the wealth pyramid, so to speak, do the options kind of multiply as you go up that pyramid?
Absolutely. The more money you have, the more options you have. That's for that is undeniable. Look, I'll put it this way: if you're worth less than 1 million, you can. I mean, there are like Plan Bs you can get in Paraguay, for example. It'll just cost you a few $1,000s.
Right.
That's perfectly fine. You can do this. Um, Generally speaking, we see more people that are worth 1 million and more. People who do it with less typically is they're actually leaving the West. They're getting a tax residency in a Paraguay, and then they travel around the world. They work remotely, and this way they pay next to 0% taxes. So that's more like the active thing. But from a Plan B point of view, if you're not actually going to be using it actively, the residency, and it's just purely a Plan B, and you have to go there every 2, 3 years to keep it active with your whole family, to go to Paraguay, each time it's a few $1,000s, etc. And time. It's generally speaking, we see people more 1 million and above,
Right.
unless they're actually using it for business.
Yeah. So, looking across the world at the moment, where are the most exciting, the best value opportunities right now, in both in terms of like the citizenship aspect, the international property investing side of things, and maybe also from kind of like a geo arbitrage point of view.
Cool. So citizenship, for Westerners in particular, I find that the Turkish citizenship by investment program is a fantastic deal. You invest $400,000 in any real estate in Turkey. It's not some specific overpriced projects that the government is forcing you into. It's literally open market. Big country, 80 million people. Istanbul, you're looking at. And Istanbul is effectively, the capital of almost, Europe, along with Paris and London, um, and of that, wider region. You can get real estate there in decent neighborhoods for $2,000, $2,500 a square meter in central areas. You buy that, you get net yields after property management, vacancy, etc., of like 4 to 5% net. You just need to keep the real estate for 3 years. You can sell it, but within a year they'll give you citizenship. And if you sell the real estate after 5 years, you won't even have to pay local capital gains taxes. So you just buy 400,000. You just essentially put $400,000 in real estate in Turkey for 3 to 5 years,
And the
and this
beauty of
gets
this
you
is not money
citizenship.
down the drain. It's kind of, you're
Yeah,
actually making a feasible investment there as well.
absolutely. If you play your cards right, you can make money. I mean, most of our clients have made money doing this. They're getting paid to get a citizenship. Once
Yeah.
you have the citizenship, it's not just for you, it's for your spouse as well and underage children, and then all the future generations. So just by shifting 400K to Turkish real estate for a few years, you're making a generational move.
Yeah.
You're granting Turkish citizenship for your grandchildren, great grandchildren, everyone. As long as when a kid is born, the kid gets registered at the Turkish embassy, and guess what? There's a wide network. Um, you're good. Just goes down the generation. So this is a fantastic generational move. Now, I'm not saying Turkey is without risks and this and that and earthquakes and conflict, blah blah. I mean, Turkey's Turkey. Um, but overall, it's a fantastic deal. And then the passports that we are selling the most, and people often talk of Caribbean passports and St. Kitts and St. Lucia because they saw on the plane and British Airways and some magazine, blah blah, that people are getting Caribbean passports. Those are passports for emerging market people that want better travel passports. If you're a Westerner, and I mean, we already have a good travel documents. We don't need more visa free.
Mm.
What we need is geopolitical diversification,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and access to new markets for business. That's where African passports are interesting. You give me the choice between a Caribbean passport or an African passport. I'll take an African passport any day. We're talking of like countries that are a lot more independent than these Caribbean countries that are just really dependencies of the UK and of
Yeah.
the US. So it really comes down to African countries are a lot more independent, and they're high growth. I just came back from almost 6 weeks in Africa. I was about 2 weeks in, actually 5 weeks. I was 2 weeks in Sierra Leone and 3 weeks in Kenya. And yeah, we're licensed agents for a few African countries to sell their citizenships, namely Sao Tome and Sierra Leone. Sao Tome, $100,000 gets you a passport for you and up to 3 dependents within 3 months, sent in the mail. And Sierra Leone is $140,000 for a passport, a citizenship. Each dependent is an extra 10K. If you're of African descent, it's actually just 100K. But that gets you access to ECOWAS, which is essentially the European Union of West Africa.
Yeah.
So with a Sierra Leonean passport, you can do business in Nigeria, you can do business in Ghana and Ivory Coast and Senegal, all of West Africa. So, and then again, it goes down the generation. So, when the rest of the world will be in demographic decline, and if they're not in demographic decline because of immigration, they'll be in social decline. um, I'll be very happy to know that my children and grandchildren will have access to markets that are still booming from a demographic point of view as locals,
And
right?
and where are you finding kind of like the most demand from your clients then at the moment? Because I mean, a lot of people talk about like the South American countries, don't they, when we talk about Plan B and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
is that the
So,
most popular or?
so I'll put it this way: for citizenships, our biggest markets are actually the U.S. and German. Germans are buying these things in droves.
Yeah,
Um, Americans and Canadians as well. They're buying the passports. Now, in terms of Latin America doesn't sell citizenships apart from El Salvador, $1 million, bit overpriced if you ask me.
mm,
Um, South America has more residencies on offer, so that's where you get a permanent residency. You get your Plan B residency permit. So the most popular ones are Mexico, Panama, and Paraguay.
right, okay. And also, what about geo-arbitrage? Because you hear about a lot of people who kind of, they might run a business in the UK, but they might live somewhere like, I don't know, Italy or Portugal. So there's a lot of that going on now. So just tell us about that theme, and what's exciting
I
around
mean,
that.
look, if you work online and you're still sitting in the UK, like, what's wrong with you? Sorry, James.
I'm working on it, don't worry. Yeah.
Like, seriously, like, why would you do this to yourself? You could live anywhere. You could pay 0% taxes if you structure things well. You could live a life of freedom. Um, and instead you're just paying for whoever rocked up on a boat and for whatever Israeli war in the Middle East, Um, why? So the biggest geo-arbitrage is get out and structure things in a way that you pay 0% taxes and enjoy life of freedom.
Fair enough. So tell us a bit about the specific services that you offer then, and how do you add value for your clients?
Sure. So look, every case is individual. So we go through, we just sit down with our clients and we have a long discussion. I mean, half of it is almost, more psychology and
Yeah.
psychiatric in nature. It's like, what do you really want in life?
Yeah.
What's actually doable for you? So we sit down with our clients and then we work on a internationalization and diversification strategy. So it's not like get rich quick. This is not some like Instagram ad. And we just help our clients diversify internationally in a reasonable way that is acceptable from, with their risk profile, and help them get set up as well with residencies and citizenships.
And how do the fees work then? Do you take a percentage cut of the transactions, or how does all that work?
Yeah, I mean, it's all transparent on our website. People can just, click on the link and see.
Cool. Um, what Having kind of like all the experiences that you've had and doing the work that you do, what has being the wandering investor? What has it taught you about life and about money in general? Do you think?
That's a good question. Um, at the end of the day, it's not money that matters, it's freedom. And money is just a means to get more freedom. That's what things come down to personally for me.
Brilliant. So, where can our listeners learn more about the Wandering Investor and all the services that you offer? Also, you do a lot of YouTube videos and things like that, don't you? You've got a blog on your website. There's tons of information on there.
Sure. Yeah, thewanderinginvestor.com. People can sign up to the free newsletter on the road and notes from the road. Um, so there's that, and then there's also YouTube. We're on X, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram, yeah, everywhere.
Brilliant, Ladislas. Thanks for coming on the show, and I hope we'll speak again soon.